It's a 60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all
We are live with the last word here on Team MBS Media. I am, of course, Jeff Barnes here with Brock Vieira. And, of course, Greg Rector is in the house. And, man, oh, man, it's been a great weekend of college football. A lot of interesting scores. We're going to skip the graphics today. We're just going to go talking about some of the scores that we had yesterday. Alabama all over Chattanooga, as you would expect. Okay, as Vinny said, they're scheduled the cupcakes. This was cupcake season. 66-10. Penn State knocked off Rutgers 27-6. Ole Miss over UL Monroe 35-3. Rolling down. Tulane 24-8. 10-1 Tulane. We've been talking about this school a bunch this past couple of weeks, talking about they should be going bowling. Well, their undefeated streak is over. James Madison finally loses yesterday, and a heartbreaker at that. Never led the whole way. That's a whole nother thing. Let me find the score right. So we'll skip that score, but James Madison's streak, 13 straight wins, is over. They get their first loss of the season.
26-23.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, for some reason I couldn't find that score. Georgia, Tennessee, 38-10. Iowa wins over Illinois, 15-13. You're Fighting Irish with an impressive senior day win, 45-7 over Wake Forest. This got to be fulfilling for Sam Hartman getting a win over the school that he came from. Clemson, North Carolina. Clemson continues. North Carolina is losing ways, 31-20. What season that's been for them after starting off so. You say the same thing about the Miami Hurricanes, which we'll get into that one a little later, I think. Last but not least, UCLA 38. UCLA 38, USC 20. And we're going to start getting into our marquee matchup. But first things first, make sure you like and subscribe, folks, if you're tuning in, right, on YouTube especially. Right, like and subscribe. If you're watching on social media, try and follow our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. You know, we're the small guys. We survive. We don't have the $1 million ads running until we go to our break. So that being said, guys, Louisville, Miami. What a game, right? You know, we've been talking about Louisville all year long, how hot they've been. Miami started off hot and cooled real fast. Can't seem to figure out the right mix on offense as far as quarterback play. There's a lot going on there. What do you guys take on this game?
Louisville has just played so well on defense. I mean, that defense has just stomped on teams, including the Irish, as we all know. Miami, again, a whole situation of Cristobal is there. That's all fine and dandy, but he does not have enough talent on that roster, bottom line. And Louisville will give Florida State a hell of a good game in the ACC championship.
How about you, Brock?
I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised with the result. What the Braun brothers have done at Louisville has been absolutely fantastic. I knew they were going to be a great hire as soon as announced. In fact, any hire that's not Scott Satterfield is definitely going to improve your team. And why Satterfield has a job in Cincinnati is beyond me, but that's a story for another time. You know, this Louisville offense, they're very competent. Plummer looks like not what he was at Cal. That's the best I can put it on that. And just this team is executing in all facets of the game. However, on the flip end, Miami, I mean, you got out to a 4-0 start. Everyone was kind of on you guys that you guys are coming and that you guys are going to be a great team this year. And then you had that horrible loss to Georgia Tech, and you haven't really recovered. But at the same time, there's kind of the Mario Cristobal special. He doesn't elevate a football team. He doesn't make a team great. He doesn't make a team offensively stout, even though he comes from an offensive school of thought. And Miami reaps what they sow. This was a terrible hire a couple years ago. That's what I said then, and it's proving to be the case now. They don't have a fan base because of their stadium. They do have talent there, but it's not good enough, and that comes down to Cristobal. And then when you look at the two previous coaches before him, Manny Diaz had a fair amount of success there, but before that, Mark Richt had Miami as the number 2 team in the country at one point. You gotta look at Cristobal and you gotta say to yourself, hey, is this the right guy to lead us forward? And quite frankly, I don't think it is. You look at their schedule, I believe they only have one victory over a Power 5 team that has a winning record, and I believe that's against Clemson. Virginia clearly has a losing record. A&M just fired Jimbo Fisher a week ago, so it's if they lose to Boston College at Chestnut Hill, I mean, I think you generally have to start thinking maybe it's time to move on from Mario Cristobal.
Yeah, I mean, this matchup, in essence, sorry, this matchup, in essence, it was Louisville's game to lose. You're the favorite team. You're coming in hot. You know, you had the one loss, but you've been moving in the right direction ever since. So at some point, you have to feel like they were going to pull away in this. They just couldn't seem to do it. I don't know what was going on with Louisville yesterday. They couldn't pull away from these guys because they should have been able to do it with their defense. We saw their offense score, but they were still letting Miami hang around in it. I think that's the one thing about Miami is as we've talked about the inconsistency at quarterback, we've talked about all the things going on ever since that loss. They don't go away. They almost took it. They almost took Florida State out. You know, so this is a team. Despite all of that, they just don't seem to go away. They're the Michael Myers, or the Undertaker. You know what I mean? Every time you think that you start to put them down, they sit back up, right? And here they are, 38-31. And it just seemed like, okay, well, at some point, Louisville's going to take control of this game. It won't be, nope. Here's Miami, still hanging around, still making plays to stay in this game. I was shocked about that part of it. I expected Louisville to win this game. Louisville did win this game eventually, but I expected it to be a little bigger margin. But they just could not seem to fully put away Miami earlier in this game. And sometimes it was mistakes. Sometimes it was little stupid mistakes at that. But there was some execution on some of those third downs where they had chances to get Miami off the field, could not get it done. And that's one of the things that I think kind of was like, this is not the team that got Notre Dame on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
But that was more Plummer.
Yeah.
Who I'm not a big fan of.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just don't see the kid being an NFL type player.
Mm-hmm.
But that was more Plummer, who was off. He was he threw the ball behind receivers all day long as well, right? So that's where the third downs didn't happen. But again, Louisville has enough has the talent to survive this. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. We're going to slide right into our next matchup. How about Michigan outlasting Maryland? A game that a lot of people thought Michigan, with all the stuff. Yeah, we saw the free Harbaugh shirts. But everybody thought, well, here they got that chip on their shoulder again like they had earlier in the season. They're going to blow Maryland out. Lee Corso likes to say, not so fast, my friends. All right? Because Maryland was there till the end. It was Tagovailoa. What can you say, man? Listen, he's had some matchups where people expect the worst of him, and it actually brings out the best of him.
Except for the strip sack fumble and the touchdown that Michigan scored on defense because of it. That was the ball game. That determined the game.
And to be honest with you, that's his fault. I don't think he's got the pocket awareness, because that's something that happens to him a lot. He'll be in the pocket holding the football. He'll get sacked, fumble. He'll give up a sack that he could have gotten rid of the football, checked it down, done something with it. He holds the ball very long,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of his flaws, and that's more exclusive to him. And it's just unfortunately for him that flaw came to fruition at the wrong time. I really thought though, and we saw kind of a little similar game, a little more aerial than we saw in last time for Michigan, but still more control out, play it to our pace. Um, Even with the passing, it wasn't crazy air it out passing. They were trying to be controlled.
Yeah.
When they had their shots, they took them. But they were trying to be controlled. They wanted long drives. They didn't exactly want the big play every time. But I must say, Michigan, what can you say? They just keep winning.
And that's at the end of the day, I mean, they are 11-0 now, right?
Yeah.
Blake Corum had a phenomenal day on the ground, and Maryland just did not have anybody to stop that kid. They just couldn't stop him from going outside, up the middle. It didn't matter where he was running the ball. Corum was carrying Terps down the field with him. It was Blake Corum's day on the offense for Michigan, as it has been most of the year, and they're 11-0 now.
Rock.
Yeah, no, you guys kind of hit everything on the head. I just want to make 2 points. One, I have some major questions about JJ McCarthy. Ever since Jim Harbaugh stopped, got suspended and everything, we saw last week. I think he went like 6 for 7 for only like 68 yards, and then this week he went 12 for 23 for 141 yards and an interception. What is going on with this passing game? I mean, I know Roman Wilson got hit early and they pulled him out of the game for preventive reasons, but when you talk about next week's big matchup against Ohio State, Michigan is going to need to throw the football periodically. And right now, I don't really have the confidence that they're going to be able to get it done like they have been in years past. So that's something to keep an eye out for. The second thing is the disrespect to Mike Locksley is unacceptable. Maryland was in this game all the way. Obviously, Blake Corum had a big rush day on the ground, as we mentioned, and there was certain things that happened. Taulia's the strip fumble, and then 2 interceptions. That was like the big difference. But what Mike Locksley has done with this Maryland program is absolutely incredible. And we talk about the Michigan State job, we talk about the Texas A&M job, we just talk about jobs around the country. Why Locksley's name hasn't been thrown around for this is kind of beyond me. This dude lost a tremendous amount of talent this past offseason to the NFL draft, and Maryland just keeps rolling. Yeah, they have 6 wins right now. I think they beat Rutgers next week, and then they probably will win their bowl game, depending on the matchup. That's going to get them at 8 wins again. For a Maryland team that has suffered for a long time, Locksley is the guy, and why people around the country aren't really giving him his flowers, it's a little bit boggling.
Yeah, and it's funny. Mike Locksley, for those that don't know, is the head and founder of the National Coalition of Minority Football Coaches, which I have to be a member of. And so, he's one of the guys that's pushing the African American coaches for head coaching opportunities, and not just coaching opportunities in general. A lot of us are underrepresented in that field, both at the collegiate level and at the pro level. But what he's done with his program is he's made it consistent, right? We talked about Maryland in the past. They'd have a good year, they have a couple of bad years. They have a good year, they have a couple of bad years. They're consistently getting good. And I think the more and more he keeps winning, the more and more that program rises and draws the attention of the recruits that he wants. He gets to pack that team and raise the level of talent to the point now where you're competing with the Penn States and beating them. You're competing with the Ohio State and possibly beating them. You're competing with the Michigan and possibly beating them. We always talk about the Big Ten. And the Penn State people always say, "Oh, we can't seem to win the big one." You can't seem to beat the top 2 dogs. You seem to beat everybody else, right? So if you look at the hierarchy in that conference before you get the new additions next year, you're going to have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and then the rest. Well, slowly but surely, Maryland is starting to pull away from the rest. And they're starting to become the ones who are becoming a part of that hierarchy. So if they keep doing what they're doing, I think Maryland's going to be over. I think Penn State, if you're Penn State fans, let James Franklin pushing more and more talent into that program. I like Drew Aller. I think you can do better. I like some of the guys he had. I think you can do better because there's a lot of talent on that team, but it's not the talent that Paterno had. Okay, so those guys had unfettered talent on top of unfettered talent, and they were able to compete for national championships year after year after year. That's not what they have in Penn State right now. They have a lot of good talent, but you're not seeing it in like an abundance that goes out there and competes with the Ohio States who are constantly putting pros in there by the dozen. You're not competing with the Michigans who are putting pros in there by the dozen because those teams are stacking the talent. That's the one thing Harbaugh has done since he's been there is stack talent. Okay, they may not have won national titles, but all of a sudden now they've won back-to-back Big Ten titles, possibly a third year in a row, and they're still stacking the pros with their guys. So you start to see Maryland guys creep in to that.
Penn State failed to get a group of wide receivers and tight ends. Yeah. That's where they failed.
Yeah. And it's hurting them, right? You look at it, they want to get more big plays from Drew Aller. He can't do it because those guys can't separate. And there's a lot of guys like that, right? You look at them in high school, they separate. But now you're against the best in the country, right? We talk about the competition level. When you're in high school, you're playing against the best in your area, right? You know, maybe you're best in your state when you go to playoffs. When you go to college, especially at the top levels, you're playing the best in the country. And when you get to the NFL, you're playing against the best in the world. There's nobody better than that.
Yeah.
There's a levels of competition to everything. People are starting to understand that. I think these teams, we talk about the Big Ten, Maryland, Penn State, they're starting to group into that second grouping of teams. Like I said, before that next group comes over, before the USCs and all those guys come over, you have to forgive the flame, fellas. It comes from being outside. You're going to get some noise, some background noise. But, that's going to be the one thing about it. I think Mike Locksley's doing a great job. I don't know if the team's ready to poach him yet. He hasn't had those big signature victories yet that really turn on those ADs and slide them up their watch list. I think he's on those lists, but I don't think he's, high enough that they are going to buy him out of a contract just yet.
Had they not given up that score to the Michigan defense yesterday, and it was 24-24, then Mr. Locksley would have been talked about quite a bit more. However, it didn't happen, right?
Absolutely.
There's also recognizing when a coach exceeds their own team's limitations. Everyone talks about like race car drivers outperforming the car. McLaughley's been outperforming the Maryland program. And when you bring up Penn State, they haven't been able to bring in the talent in abundance of the Ohio States and Michigans, which is true, but they ain't scrubs either. Drew Aller is a very competent quarterback, just like Sean Clifford was majority of the time, and Tristan Sorley was majority of the time. But then you also look at the players that Penn State has had that they sent to the NFL, guys like Jahan Dodson, all the tight ends that they sent, and so on and so forth. And then you start having the question, what is the issue? And in my opinion, it's the offensive creativity at Penn State. That's the whole reason why they fired the offensive coordinator who just loves 11 personnel until, the day he dies. You get a guy like Mike Locksley, he'll switch it up. He understands matchups. He understands how to take advantage of players. And let's not forget, last year, he had Jacob Copeland, Dante Demas, and Rakeem Jarrett. I got a lot of names that aren't really gonna pop off the screen, but guess what? When they were they were in Mike Locksley's offense, you know what they did? They made plays because Locksley put players in position. And just because he hasn't had that quote unquote signature victory yet doesn't mean that you can ignore all that he's done. If Maryland was playing in the West Division of the Big Ten compared to the East, they would be in the conference championship game every single year. So I get why AD's a little bit hesitant, but in my opinion, I've seen the hires you guys have been making, and I don't like them. And to quote the great Jeff Barnes when it comes to draft season, well, GMs always say, well, you don't have the information that we have. What did Jeff say? Well, if you're picking players based off the information that you got, I don't want the information that you have. And that's exactly how I feel about this Mike Locksley situation.
I like it being quoted for once. It's nice. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to go over our last three matchups. Then when we get into the statement, folks. You're watching The Last Word. Once again, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. We'll be back with more the last word right after this.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build a cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gulf Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. # built for the wild.
Enjoy 40% off site-wide. Vitable takes the guesswork out of feeling good. Get your own personalized daily vitamin pack safely delivered to your doorstep every month. Take their online quiz to find out which vitamins and minerals can support your personal needs based on your own diet and lifestyle. # only what you need, nothing that you don't. All vitamins are manufactured in Australia at the highest quality standard. Ingredients come in the best form for their absorption by your body. Enjoy 40% off site-wide using code NBS40 at checkout.
You are watching The Last Word with Team NBS Media. And now back to Joe, Jeff, and Brock.
Jeff and Brock here, along with Greg and for Joe. And yeah, he's got his Yeti cooler. See,
I got my Yeti mug.
That's right. Get your Yetis, man. Everybody, they're really, really convenient and they work amazing. I have one at my desk at Nexstar. I have one at my desk here in the home office. So I made sure I'm covered on both ends. Definitely get your Yetis, folks. So guys, we have another one. And this matchup here, although the winner wasn't a total shock because they were capable of winning this game, the score was the shocking part of this one. And we're going to talk about that matchup with Utah and Arizona. Arizona smashed them. I mean, they Roman Reigns smashed and stacked Utah yesterday. It's a shocking result. Guys, what do you feel about this?
Greg?
Oh, you go ahead. You're the Arizona guy. Come on now.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say I called it, but if you did watch College Football Forecast with my dearest co-host, Bill Carroll, I did say that I had Arizona upsetting Utah. And am I surprised? Kind of. I mean, not the victory like Jeff mentioned, but the result. I mean, they just threw the brakes off of Arizona. And quite frankly, Utah should not have had 18 points, but I am happy they did because they hit the over, and I had betted that. But Utah needed like two crazy fourth down conversions, two catches made by this King kid that is going to be an absolute stud in these next coming years for the Utes. He has all the tools to be a great wide receiver. But they needed like a lot to go their way to just even get that final score on the board. What Arizona did was just incredible. They just came out firing, got some big plays on the defense side of the football. I think we're up 28-0 at one point. And I've been telling everybody, it's the rise of the Wildcats. Jed Fisher's done a phenomenal job at the state for the Arizona football program. They have two incredible wide receivers in Jacob Calloway and Territory McMillan. They could have been better if Dorian Singer didn't leave to USC in the offseason. Obviously, they lost Jaden Delora, but then this Fafita kid comes in who was classmates with McMillan, and we've seen that connection time and time again. He stepped in, has been balling out ever since, and will be the starting quarterback for Arizona into the future. This is a program on the rise, and one of the guests of the Comfortable Forecast is just a good friend of Team MBS, Donovan James. I believe he said several months ago that when teams move to conferences, there's always those teams that come out and become really strong based on that move. Well, Arizona looks to be that team when they go to the Big 12. The Big 12 better get ready. They better strap up because Arizona's coming. They're coming with an attitude. This team has been disrespected for a long time. We really haven't talked about them well outside that 1 year with Rich Rodriguez since the Desert Storm days. And defensively, they hit hard. They play sound, fundamental defense. Their defense coordinator, Johnny Nansen, is really underrated. They have a great offense. What's not to love about the Wildcats? Not surprising to me, shocking for the country, but I hope finally America is opening up their eyes to what is going down in Tucson. And hey, there's a lot that could happen in this final week coming up, and Arizona could find themselves in the Pac-12 title game. So just incredible season for the Wildcats. Their losses are really close, and had a couple plays gone the other way, they might be undefeated right now, and that's just a testament to Fish and his staff.
Yeah, I mean, the way they took out Oregon State said a lot, right? We talked about this team and said they were coming on strong. Vivita's has been a godsend for that program this year. Okay, and I must say, you can't deny the impact they've had. I know that people are talking about the post game stuff with Jed Fish, unfortunately, but listen, that game was amazing. What they did to Utah, we don't see that done to Utah very often. And from a team that is not considered one of the power teams in that conference, all of a sudden now, this team is really taking on a lot. And they're going to be a big problem for a lot of teams in the future. I think the different style of play when they move over conferences will be something that you got to look out for. But definitely, I love the running game. First of all, their running game is amazing. If you talk about one of the best teams running in college football, what they do in the running game with their mix of running backs, they bring a lot to the table. The way they're able to work the perimeter in the passing game is amazing. Like I said, Favita, what he's able to do, extending plays and finding plays down the football field is another great thing. And of course, yes, once again, folks, I am outside. So this is not a backdrop. This is literally me outside. So you're getting an outdoor show for me. So unfortunately, you may hear the occasional plane passing by or dogs barking or unfortunately crows. We do have crows in my area. So you're going to hear that as well. So ignore all that. We enjoy the scenery. As Bill says, I'm in the compound. I ain't got no compound, but this is Florida weather for all of you people in the cold right now. Enjoy the Florida weather. All right. Greg.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, as I'm up here in frozen Canada. But anyhow, the Utah Utes got Utes by Arizona's defense. Bottom line. Arizona's offense was going to put up points no matter what, but that defense just smoked Utah yesterday. I mean, they made Bryson Barnes look absolutely terrible, and good for the Wildcats. We can get into the possibilities of them being the Pac-12 representative as well, but we'll wait a little bit for that.
Yeah, and something I want to talk about is there's two things that I saw that is the hallmark of a program on the rise yesterday, from a coaching perspective. One was efficiency. Fifita went 22 for 30 for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. Territory McMillan on a trick play threw for a touchdown as well. And then when Jane Delora came into the game, you expect the quarterback that was a starter, a guy that had all the hype behind him for a Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. He might come in, try to do too much, be a little bit lethargic. There could be a lot to go wrong. No, he came in with 2 for 2, 51 yards, and a touchdown score. He came in, he did his job. Jonah Coleman, who's one of the most underrated running backs in the country, as you guys mentioned, 14 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown. But the thing that really made a difference for me was at the end of the game, when there was nothing left to play for, when everything was done and dusted, you saw that Arizona defense. Did they let up for one bit?
Nope.
No, they were coming after that quarterback hard. They were playing tough defense. And just, like I said, the King kid made some really impressive plays on 4th down twice. Landon King, that was just mind-boggling. But besides that, the effort that they showed from until the final play was just astonishing, and again, the hallmark of a program on the rise. They're doing all the right things up there, well, actually down there in Tucson. And when you talk about the expanded college football playoff, they're gonna be a dark horse for that next year. Of course, like Jeff said, when they change conferences, it's gonna be different style. But there's not really a lot of great defense being played in the Big 12 at the current moment. In fact, probably the better defenses are leaving the Big 12 being said. So we just talk about from an effort standpoint, they already had that advantage. And those 4 Pac-12 teams, when they come down to the Big 12, they're gonna make a difference. I think Arizona's gonna be the king of those 4.
Yeah, I think what they're going to have to get used to is the offensive flurry of the Big 12 in general. I think that's the one thing the Big 12 does is they find ways to score points in bunches that a lot of teams have a hard time keeping up with. I think the one thing you can do, if you can score with them, you can beat any one of those Big 12 teams, including the 2 that are leaving. All right, so as we saw though, the newcomers, if you bring a right style of play, what you can do to some of those teams, it can get the victory is amazing. Like we saw what UCF did to Oklahoma State last week. Like nobody expected that, but you could come in and do something that they're not used to seeing. What UCF was able to do, ground that ball out so hard on the ground that they couldn't stop it, and somehow find ways to mix up things offensively that you keep that Oklahoma State offense off balance. All of a sudden, you get a blowout win for the newcomer. So I think what will happen with Arizona and these guys, they're going to bring a different kind of offense that they're not used to seeing. Now, they may become shootouts for a while, but if they ever get that defense rolling the way they get it rolling right now, boy, oh boy, they're going to be problems in the Big 12 next year.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to slide on over to the Big 12. And of course, Texas and Iowa State. And Texas just continues to make their case for the college football playoff, staying in the hunt as they're winning and winning and winning. Makes that Red River rivalry loss look so much worse because they could be undefeated right now. But once again, I'll tell you what, though, at least this week, Sark and the guys didn't let a team hang around. Okay? 10-point victory. They didn't go out there and make this a heartbreaker or a heart clencher where you're sitting there holding your chest if you're a Texas fan, hoping that they can hold on another game where they've blown a lead. This time they played ahead, they stayed ahead, they won.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as you gentlemen know, I have been very harsh on Steve Sarkisian since he began his tenure at Texas for that very reason. Yeah, and you started to see him shed some of the things that we were talking about negatively on that. Like he would allow teams to come back. He would melt down in the fourth quarter. His offense would become mundane in the fourth quarter. He'd become a little bit too scared, a little too conservative. Well, they put up 20 points in the second half of the ball game. They had a massive loss to Jonathan Brooks, but I wasn't too concerned because this CJ Baxter kid is absolutely fantastic. And he showed 20 carries, 117 yards on the ground. Quinn Ewers, 23 for 33, 281 yards passing, 2 touchdowns in his first game back from injury. I had a Texas upset alert. This Iowa State team is a little bit confusing to understand because when conference play started, they just decided to start playing incredible. But they took care of business in a place that's not really easy to win at, and more power to them. They're gonna have 2 big games coming up. The final Texas Tech game, which I know is going to be very emotional for the people down in Lubbock. They've been talking about this game forever, especially since the fact that they already owned the final victory over Oklahoma last year. And then obviously the Big 12 championship game, which as we saw last year, anything can happen. TCU thought they were going to come in, beat K-State, enter the playoff undefeated. Well, that ended up not being the case. They did end up making the playoff, but they did lose to Kansas State. So a lot is going to ride on these last 2 weeks for Texas, but you could not be any more excited as a Longhorns fan, knowing what you've been seeing and especially how the team has rebounded after the OU game. You would think after Red River, Texas would be the team to melt down because that's just in line with what they've been doing and they lost. No, the team that wins was the team that melted down. Very, very odd. But hey, that's what football is sometimes. Texas, well done, and looking forward to see what they do in these final 2 weeks.
How about you, Greg?
Well, I mean, it was a Texas victory. Was it really impressive though? I mean, no, this was a pretty ugly game. It wasn't all that exciting. And Iowa State, like Brock says, has been winning in conference. Well, guess what? That's what they do. They thrive, especially at home in conference. That is no fun place to go and play. So Texas gets full credit for going on that road trip and getting the victory. But am I putting Texas into my top 4? No.
No, not quite yet.
Yep. Listen, they're going to be if they continue to do what they're doing, they're going to be a problem when it comes to the committee, because what you're having is eventually either Michigan or Ohio State's got to lose, right? Somebody's got to lose there. Then you turn around and you look at the other teams that are undefeated. Somebody may lose there. You get a bunch of one. That's where you have to really look at it. I think so much right now it's not about, are they good enough? I think what's going to happen is if you get those teams that become those one-loss teams, because we look at Florida State, and they're not one of our highlighted games, but we just saw they lost their quarterback to a very gruesome injury, so he's done for the year. Jordan Travis won't be back. Now, the young man that came in behind him did play well, but they were losing that game early yesterday. They were on upset alert. So, again, you're talking about it just takes one loss to throw a whole monkey wrench in this playoff right now. And you're going to get one loss from either Michigan or Ohio State, and you could possibly get a loss from Florida State before or even by the ACC championship. So think about that. Okay, so you think about it, you go to the ACC championship with a loss. They take a loss in the ACC championship. They're done. They're not even in the playoff. This is a team we've had in there since the rankings started for the playoff. So this is going to be a big monkey wrench there. This is playing out all the way till the end, folks. This is not going to be one of those things where you're going to sit there and go, "These are the top 4." Don't even bother. We already know who the top 4 are. No. This is going to play out week after week after week. So definitely something to enjoy and look out for as we talk about it. And we get into our final matchup of the day. And man, oh man, was this exciting game. Wasn't the high scoring game we've seen recently from Washington, but nevertheless, they had to duke it out with these guys right here. And with Oregon State. And that right there was the big thing. All right. Washington and Oregon State. It was a slugfest. It was a heavyweight battle. It wasn't the scoring affair that everybody thought it was going to be. Oregon State's defense is really good, folks. I'm sorry to admit that a lot of people don't want to admit that. They don't let you score 50 points and 40 points like a lot of these teams do when they win games. They'll keep you at 20. They'll keep you under 30. They'll score enough to win. And unfortunately, in games when they haven't scored enough, they've lost to Arizona and did, of course, yesterday to Washington. But this is a team that's tough. And like I said, DJ Uiagalelei has done a great job this year. I think people finally starting to see he wasn't the problem at Clemson. Right? I said that before he left. He's not the problem. You're definitely seeing that now.
I mean, well, you look at him. You look at him now under center as often as he is compared to his days at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just a remarkable turnaround for Uiagalelei. However, Jamar Muhammad stepped up for the Huskies. He got the 2 picks. Corvallis, ugly rainstorm for most of the game. And the punter, unfortunately, had that ball go over his head and he kicked the ball out for a safety. That turns out to be the difference. But let's give the Washington Huskies defense credit, because that defense stood out there for an 18-play drive that took over 10 minutes, a 12-play drive that took over 8 minutes, and they still got that victory. They still ended up being a good enough defense to get the job done. And I don't care if Oregon is so hot and all this other jazz. I want the Huskies to be respected, not just for Penix and Odunze. I want that defense to get some respect, because that defense has stepped up time and again. But nobody wants to give them any credit. Well, I do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there was several game-changing plays, and guess what? They're all associated with the Washington defense. Obviously, we got 2 interceptions. There was also a fumble recovery that set up Michael Penix's rushing touchdown.
Yep.
Right after Oregon State was able to strip the ball out of Dylan Johnson, when he looked like he was going to the end zone. Washington that's the kind of the mantra all year. We always talk about their offense, but they've had a lot of games where they have to grind out those gritty wins on the backs of their defense. This was no exception. Washington looks hot. I do have some concerns entering the Pac-12 championship game if they are going to play Oregon or even Arizona, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And again, those are just concerns. Those aren't real deal breakers for me. The Huskies look fantastic. They're going to take care of business in the Apple Cup. There's no doubt about that. I would be shocked if Washington State was even within 10 points of the Huskies in that game. Oregon State, I don't understand what people have against the Beavers. Corvallis, Oregon is one of the most beautiful places to play. Research Stadium is a beautiful stadium. Oregon State didn't just get a good defense. They've had like a good defense forever. Like pre Jonathan Smith. Like since I would say I started watching college football, their defense has always been solid. Their defense has been above average at a minimum since I started watching college football, regardless of coach, especially when they play in Corvallis. They just don't have what they needed at the quarterback position. Now, obviously, we mentioned DJ. You know, he looks a lot better than he did at Clemson, but he did still throw 2 interceptions. Damian Martinez was fantastic on the ground, and it was raining, so that does go into effect badly. But you need a guy behind center who can elevate you. And I don't want to be that guy, but I wonder if they stuck with Bryce and didn't bring in Uyagalele. Do we have a different story for this Oregon State team this season? I don't know. I just want to throw that out there because this was also a really good Oregon State team last year. And maybe if you bring back a quarterback who understands the system, who understands the program a little bit more, maybe those few losses start turning to wins. I don't know. I just want to throw that out there. Regardless, what Jonathan Smith has done in his time at Corvallis has been fantastic. And I have him pegged to take over the UCLA job if they do move on from Chip Kelly.
And that's interesting. That's a whole nother thing. Chip Kelly. What does UCA think? Well, they haven't made a move. It was reported last week they were going to let him go. They haven't made a move yet. But what are they thinking? What you just got back to relevancy because of this guy. Why are you all of a sudden now you want to talk about possibly firing the man? Now, I don't know if it was a bad report that was put out there, but there's no way. There's no way. You were irrelevant. All of a sudden, you're relevant again because of you want to talk about possibly fighting them. That's that short-sightedness that if we're not playing for the Pac-12 championship, we're not playing for the national championship, we're failing. Your program was failing when it could barely win 4 wins a year. So you're in a Colorado situation, minus the fact you at least won more than 1 game before Chip Kelly got. So and you've had some decent coaches. You had a run of decent coaches. So yeah, this is that report bothered me quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because what Chip Kelly has done at UCLA is, for some reason, being very underrated for no good reason. He brought in Lobster from Washington, who has turned into one of the best defenders in the country. Gabriel Murphy is a very underrated defender as well. Darius Muasau is another underrated defender, just for the Pac-12. You look at the offensive side of football. Yeah, they're still having a little bit of issues with the quarterback position. Oh, boo-hoo, right? It's not easy to move on from Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but what did you do? You have Ethan Garbers. Then you also brought in Dante Moore. Sure, Moore didn't really live up to expectations yet. He's also 18 years old, a true freshman, but he's a 5-star recruit. Talking to some of my sources, they've been saying that the problem that UCLA has is that Chip Kelly doesn't really want to emphasize high school recruiting. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as you have enough scholarship players, who cares how they got to your program? I mean, what he has done in the transfer portal cannot be understated. Bringing in Carson Steele, Joe Michael Sturdivant, Kyle Ford, a whole bunch of players, if we're being honest, that is going to be taking too long to name. He has really been at the forefront of this NIL and transfer portal thing, while a lot of coaches his age or even older have been very behind the 8 ball when it comes to it. And as mentioned, UCLA, you're not exactly the greatest program in the country. You have a stadium that's an hour away from campus that nobody can really get to, that is hot super hot during the summer because they have no shade.
Mhm.
Yes, it is the Rose Bowl, but still, you have a program that isn't as greatly funded as some of the others in your conference, and you have a coach that is what not only be at the forefront of the transfer portal. Look at the coaches that he's bringing in. Bringing in DeAnton Lynn, Anthony Lynn's son, phenomenal hire. This defense has looked absolutely incredible this year. Especially the fact that you were supposed to have like this session program with the late Bill McGovern, and unfortunately he passed away this offseason. So not only did you have to lose him as a mentor, you're also trying to install a new defense. You're trying to figure out this offense. You take a look at Chip Kelly's history. He outside crucial part and the college game. He's been very evolutionary. He understands how to create matchups. He is a great historian of the game, and he's been keeping up with the times. Why would you want to get rid of a guy like that? I don't know, but if they do get rid of him, I have Chip Kelly pegged to Washington State. I think that'd be a great fit for them. But I think if you're UCLA, unless it is Jonathan Smith, again, I'm a big fan of his. I don't really see a reason for you to move on. UCLA is not an easy place to compete, not an easy place to recruit. And guess what? He's done it. He's done both of them at a very high level.
Well, you know what's time who's done something at a high level? The statement's been at a high level.
Ooh.
We got another week this week. It's time for the statement. So here we are. Time for the statement, folks. We're going to tell you who we felt made the biggest statement this college football weekend. And we're going to start with Greg. Greg, let's start off with who you believe made the biggest statement.
I don't think there was a really huge statement made by anybody this week in college football. However, I do have a statement for the birthday boy out there, Joe Cardozo, and his that school up north. You're going down to Ohio State. That's it. The bottom line is done. You're going down, Joe. Wolverines are out. Gone. There's your statement.
There you go, Brock. What you got?
Yeah, what I want to start by saying happy birthday to the boss man, Joe Cardozo. Hopefully the hangover bug doesn't affect you too badly. But happy birthday to you. Good luck to your team up north, the Michigan Wolverines. Hopefully they take down the Ohio State Buckeyes for a third straight week. I can't stand those Buckeyes. But, of course, that's a conversation for that time. The team that I have making a big statement is a little bit biased for me. It is my alma mater, UNLV. They beat Air Force in Colorado Springs, 31-27, essentially giving them a win and in matchup next week against San Jose State, I believe. And should they win that, they'll enter the Mountain West Championship game. A incredible season for Barry Odom and his guys so far. They're 9-2 right now. You know, they brought in what's his name? Bobby Petrino as offensive coordinator. Bobby Petrino leaves after a week for the Texas A&M job, so they bring in Brennan Marion, who has done a phenomenal job with his offense. Aaron Maiva is real. Jay Maiva keeps launching it, and he's been playing incredibly well. And, as a kid growing up in Hawaii, UNLV football has kind of always been in my mind because Hawaii and UNLV would play every single year in the Ninth Island Showdown. And UNLV has never been like good. Matter of fact, they've had like one winning season outside this year and like the past 15 or some crazy number like that. Barry Odom comes in his first year, wins 9 games, is on the verge of 10. Looking at whatever happens to Tulane, UNLV could possibly end up in a New Year's Six bowl game should they win out. And stock in this football team could not be higher. It's very incredible to see what 1 year can do to a football program. I'm absolutely on cloud 9 with this Rebels team right now. Just want to give them their flowers. 31-27 win over the Air Force Falcons. They're currently 6-1 in conference, either 6-1 or 7-1 in conference play. Their only losses were to Fresno State in a game that they honestly should have tied up at the end in Fresno, and of course to Michigan in Ann Arbor. It's just incredible. UNLV, just one for the future.
Listen, Brock, we've been talking about it for several weeks on the show, right? We talk about the statement, we go through all of these things. This is the year of the little guys. Let's face it, there's a lot of little guys winning this year and bringing respect to their programs, right? We talked about James Madison. Yes, they just suffered their first loss of the season. But think about it. Look at the week we're in, and they just suffered their first loss, right? We talked about UNLV, right, amongst others. Arizona, who's not really the little guy, but they're the little guy in their conference, right? So here we are, right? So, but raise your hand if you've seen Jacksonville State in a bowl game. Guess who's going bowling this year? Jacksonville State, 8-3. Okay, the little guys are rising. Okay, the mid majors, all these little guys in the conference, they're rising. Okay, we talked about Kansas and the SEC. Oh, Kansas is coming up. Yes, the little guys are rising. They're finding ways to elevate their programs and win football games. They're not satisfied with just making money, getting walked all over by the bigger schools. The little guys are rising. Jacksonville State goes and takes out Louisiana Tech yesterday. Tech's having a down year, but they took them out big, 56-17, got their 8th victory this season. Okay? They're going bowling this year, and they're going to be competitive. This team has been competitive all year. They're going out there. They're beating opponents in the conference. They're beating opponents outside of their conference, and not just the FCS schools. They're doing the thing, and you would never expect it. Now, if you say Jacksonville State, Florida, no, they're not in Florida. They're in Alabama. But nevertheless, they are still out there doing what they're supposed to be doing. Going out there, elevating their program, and winning games and bringing respect to the program, national attention to the program, or you're going to get better kids and continue to grow the program. This is what it's all about when you take on a head coaching job at the college football level. Yes, you want to educate your kids, but you know what? You're hired mostly to elevate that program, get it winning, and continue sustained success. And this is what you're starting to see from a lot of these smaller programs that have been looked over and stepped on for decades and on end and many times. Okay, that these guys are coming in with a plan and they're executing to fruition and making it happen. Okay, Jacksonville State, 8-3. James Madison, 10-1. You're looking at all these schools, UNLV, right? You're looking at all of these schools who are either smaller, not respected. James Madison comes up first year to FBS and goes 10-0. Okay, they should be bowling. This nonsense about the NCAA stopping them from going to the bowl after they've appealed and appealed and appealed. What can you say, man? I am over and done with the NCAA and their ridiculous nonsense. Okay, when schools earn their place, you give them what they deserve. Stop doing this stuff, and you're going to get these schools in bowl games. They're probably going to throw into a lesser bowl because they're not the big schools. But you want to know what? They should be in a big bowl. Right? There's no reason a school with 7 wins or 6 wins, that's UCLA or any one of the big schools, deserves to be in a better bowl than these guys. Put them in the bowl they deserve. Let them go bowl and get their national attention they deserve. Give people what they deserve. Stop giving it to the big schools because of just the helmet.
And here's a bowl that the JMU should actually be going to is the ReliaQuest Bowl on January 1. It should not be what they're predicting, which is the Fighting Irish against LSU and their former coach. JMU, a bowl game on January the 1st. That's the bottom line. They're not creative at all. See?
Yeah,
not creative at all is the new acronym for the NCAA, so that you can actually say the N words. But yeah, JMU deserves to be going to that type of a game. Bottom line.
Nope.
Yeah, Greg, that's a better acronym than I got, which is the National Crooks Against America. That's how I feel about the NCAA. But you guys are absolutely right. And there's 3 teams I want to highlight real quick. 3 teams and 3 coaches who are not getting the love that they deserve. Troy and John Summerall, 9-2 right now. They went 12-1 last year. They're number 1 in the Sun Belt Conference and will be playing for another conference title. They should be getting the love that they deserve. Liberty with Jamie Chadwell, one of the most disrespected coaches in America. Shouldn't have even gotten this Liberty job. Should have gotten a bigger job coming out of Coastal Carolina for what he did over there. Guess what? They're 11-0 right now. If they beat UTEP next week, they'll be 12-0. And guess who they're going to play in the conference championship game? They're going to play Jerry Kill and I believe the 7-3 or 7-4 New Mexico State Aggies. And guess what New Mexico State just did? They went down to Auburn, Alabama, and they beat the brakes off of Hugh Freeze's team. I mean, it wasn't even close. They beat the brakes off them, 31-10. I tell you, like they're 9-3 right now. Those three teams deserve the love that they deserve. Liberty deserves to be in a New Year's Six bowl game. No one has been giving them the love that they deserve because who cares about Liberty football, right? But it's so irritating that these small teams don't get the love that they deserve. Yet LSU, for some reason, who has 3 losses on the year, it's like, oh, LSU is so good. Gene Daniels is so good. He should be Heisman. Blah, 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 blah. I do not care. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to Alabama. They lost to Florida State. You put them against the big boys, and they lost. And guess what? Whenever you put New Mexico State, Liberty, James Madison, Jacksonville State against tough situations, you know what happens? They rise to the occasion instead of falling like the LSU Tigers and other Power 5 teams. Absolutely ridiculous. These teams are not getting the love. These coaches should be getting the love right now from ADs. And once again, like I mentioned earlier, until these ADs stop, looking at, oh, maybe this coach came from this bigger program, that's what we should hire him. Look at the product they're putting on the field. And these coaches, they're putting a great product on the field.
Yep.
I agree. Before we go, how do y'all feel about the Dino Babers firing?
It had to be done.
Yeah. I'm a big Dino Babers fan for a multitude of reasons. University of Hawaii graduate. He did a really good job at Syracuse for a long time. But, he was on the hot seat entering last year, had a ridiculously good year, and that's why he got a stay of execution. Unfortunately, it just in the second half of the season, it didn't really work out for him. Syracuse is a tough place to play. I think he's going to rebound. I think when he gets a job that's more suited to his strengths, you're going to see a head coach that's going to be very successful within the next 5 years.
He belongs. He belongs at a Big Ten school.
Yeah,
he really does.
You're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of teams in the Big Ten East. Big Ten West. Correction. Big Ten West could use a guy like Dino Babers on their football team.
Yeah, it's an interesting case with him because I know a couple of Syracuse alums who weren't impressed with him. So they were very critical of Dino. I know a couple. I met a few of his coaches, very good guys. They work hard to get that program where they had it. Just didn't get the success that people wanted from that program. They said a lot. I know some alumni. There may have been more alumni that were thrilled with him than not, but the alumni that I know weren't exactly happy with him. So I think that's part of the thing there was, you weren't getting the success they hoped, and then the alumni weren't with you. Once you get the alumni that turn against you, that's the death sentence in itself. All they need is enough ammunition.
Well, I mean, that school creates all the media guys anyway, right? So we all know that if you go to Syracuse, you get a TV job eventually, and that's the big problem. Well, he did not meet the needs of those folks, and it's sayonara.
Yeah. I would like to add, it's not going to happen, but a job that I think could be very beneficial to him is that job down in San Diego State. Their program, that Group 5, brand new stadium, really good recruiting market. I think a guy like him who had success at Bowling Green at Eastern Illinois is going to come in and really turn that place around. But, unfortunately, that's what I like. So they're definitely not going to do it. But I think it would be a really nice fit down there.
Actually, I'll give you a better place for him, and that's Pullman, Washington, too. He could absolutely help the Cougars.
Yeah, offensive-minded guy, produce some really good players. I love the fit as well.
Well, I'm going to say this before we go. Congratulations to Syracuse alum, as we're talking Syracuse. Good coaching buddy of mine who was on the staff yesterday at my alma mater in the Bronx, Mount St. Michael Academy, as they reclaimed the CHSFL title for the first time in 10 years. Congrats to Coach Valentini on his last year of coaching at the Mount, going out on top. So with that being said, this has been the last word, guys. Thanks again for Greg for coming on, talking some college ball with us. Brock, great to see you again. Can't wait for more. And
Brutus is gonna beat the Wolverines. It's over. It's over, Brock.
Getting it in. Happy birthday to the boss man, Joe Cardozo. We'll be back next week. Make sure you stay tuned for Moving the Chains right after this. We'll be back with more of The Last Word next week with more college football talk as we're winding down the college football season. It's that time. Thanksgiving week is here. Make sure you tune in next week. Take care. We'll be back.